Welcome into an all-new episode of the Combat Sports Report here on SportsGrid. I'm Brian Ciano. Thank you so much for joining us as we take our weekly look at everything going on in the world of combat sports. A lot of great fights this past weekend. We got plenty more coming up next weekend. Everyone was talking about turkey and football. Forget about that for me. I wasn't getting any Black Friday sales in stores on Friday. While I was hanging up those ornaments on the tree, I was watching the PFL. I have a great card in Saudi Arabia where we got 6 new champions and $6 million given out. And then this week, it continues. We got fights for both Lights Out Extreme Fighting and the BKFC, of course, starting with Friday night down in Atlanta. We get BKFC 69. Then after that, on Saturday, you have Lights Out Extreme Fighting 21. So lots of great battles in all of combat sports going on over the couple weeks here before the holidays, and we're looking forward to talking about all that with you. Later on in the show, we will catch up with our man Ian Parker, the PFL analyst, talk to him about what happened in Saudi Arabia, how he saw those fights, how things went down. We'll do a double segment with him, get his thoughts, because there's so many great fights. We got to break them down piece by piece. Then after that, we're going to talk to BKFC featherweight Nathan the Reaper Rivera. That's right. It's the Rivera era, and we're just all living in it right now. Man who has 2 wins so far in the BKFC of less than 90 seconds, going for his 3rd this weekend down there in Atlanta, where he's from. You know, the Atlanta, Duluth area. He's born and raised, fought a lot of times there. We're going to talk to him what it's like to finally get to fight BKFC there and what he expects in his fight against Street. We'll also catch up with our man, of course, Lights Out Extreme Fighting founder and president Shawne Merriman, who's going to be cluing us in on what to watch out for this weekend at Lights Out Extreme Fighting 21 out there in Long Beach. If you're out in Cali, make sure you go check it out in person. If not, there's going to be a number of ways for you to check it out here for us on the East Coast or wherever you are throughout the country or the world. And we'll get all that information from Shawne Merriman coming up later on. And then we'll finish up by looking forward to what that card is going to look like in Atlanta and what we expect. But first, we got to recap because we had awesome fights. We got to start off with what we saw in PFL 2024 World Championships in Saudi Arabia, Black Friday. It was going on all day. They also had the PFL MENA Championships. They had PFL Showcase fights. So pretty much from whenever you woke out of your turkey coma on Friday till dinner time, you were watching blood sports with the PFL out there in Saudi Arabia, and it was awesome. I enjoyed every second of it. Let's talk about these 6 title fights, how they ended, and who now has $1 million richer. Let's start with the main fight, Loughnane versus Hizriev. Now, this was for the featherweight title. Loughnane, former champion back in 2022, a guy who, had his work cut out for him against this dangerous Russian, Hizriev, undefeated, and that's pretty much how the fight went. It was a tough fight for Loughnane. Hizriev controlled all 5 rounds. He gets the decision. He got a 49-46 on 2 cards, 50-45 on 1 card. It was a tough fight. Loughnane, got to give him credit, though, for the adversity. Battled through all 5 rounds. Did not get finished. Bleeding for about 3 or 4 of those rounds, but still, keeps going. Still keeps trying to do his thing. Got caught a couple times with some good takedowns. Trying to do the spinning back kicks every time Hizriev threw those. It was a good shot to Loughnane. But if Loughnane threw those, it ended up in a takedown for his opponent. So tough stylistically for him there. Hizriev showing the great wrestling, but what really impressed, of course, was his stand-up. He was picking his opponent apart, just quicker with the jabs, with the short shots. Loughnane was bleeding throughout much of the fight, and, I went back and watched, and I couldn't really find the spot where, that's the one that landed that cut him open. No, it was just repeated strikes by his opponent time and time again through the first couple rounds that, gave him that blood down the face horror movie look that he fought through for another 3 rounds. And in the end, Hizriev takes the title and is now the lightweight champion for 2024 for the PFL. Great performance by him. He's a dangerous fighter. Going to be interesting to see what is next for him and how people attack this guy because, he was known as a wrestler when he's Dagestani wrestlers. But when you show that kind of grit on the feet and the great shots, the quickness, the different attacks, it wasn't just straight rights or 1-2s or just basic boxing. Like I said, he was throwing some spinning back kicks. He was throwing lots of different combinations and different attacks, give you a different look with every time. Loughnane struggled with it. Others might as well. And we will see what 2025 holds for the future champ. If you watched me on Coast to Coast this past week, I was giving out some picks, figuring out what we can do. Hizriev, of course, was a big favorite, so it was hard to bet him, but he wins that. We also went Loughnane plus 5.5 on the spread on DraftKings, so that one paid off at least. Even though he lost, you get some good victory there. Also, co-main event was the women's flyweight title. Dakota Ditcheva versus Tyler Santos. We talked to Ditcheva couple weeks ago. The undefeated young phenom rising up the ranks, just dropping ladies left and right. Going against Santos, the longtime vet who has fought for titles in the UFC. Coming now, fighting for the title in the PFL. A lot more experience, a lot more grit in a lot of people's minds because of what we've seen from her. We hadn't seen Ditcheva go deep into a fight. Could she handle a big, strong grappler like this? The answer is yes, and she did it pretty convincingly. Second round knockout for her as she dropped Santos. Talked some smack afterwards, talking about how Santos was calling her a Barbie, saying that she wasn't that good, that she was going to put her in her place. Well, she said, Barbie just beat your butt, and threw on some lipstick afterwards. It was just a great performance by Ditcheva. Santos was trying to get her against the cage, maybe rough her up a little bit there, go for takedowns there, but Ditcheva used great body control, stayed on the feet, picked her apart, and just mixed up her attacks left and right. She threw some great, just straight shots to the face. Then all of a sudden would throw the straight kick to the face and catch Santos with that. Throw some leg kicks to make her think low. Just constantly raising and lowering her eyes and her, point of defense. Then every time that she brought her hands up, well, let's throw some good knees to the body. Ditcheva just kept picking her apart through the first 2 rounds whenever she got free of the grappling that Santos was trying to do. And then in the second round, as you saw there in the video, those body shots. First, a big knee to the body, then 2 big uppercuts are what end this fight. As she finishes Santos, she doubles her over with the uppercut to the body and then finished her once more. And she is now the PFL women's champion in the flyweight division. Was the European champion, now the overall flyweight champion. And we'll see what's next for her, if she gets some pay-per-view fights or what. But she has shown that she is a rising star for the PFL. Light heavyweight, Impa Kasanganay versus Yagshimuradov. This was a tough one. Kasanganay coming in as defending champion. We talked to him about his great story rising up into the PFL and what he's done. Was a quick fight, though, for his opponent. Came very aggressive out of the gates, was Kasanganay. Came out trying to attack Yagshimuradov, maybe get him off guard. Didn't work. Yagshimuradov caught him with a big right about 40 seconds in, jumps on him, throws some big uppercuts with the right hand that you see in the replay. It just swarmed him. And with less than a minute into the fight, Yagshimuradov becomes the light heavyweight champion at plus money too. He was a slight underdog, so good payday for anybody who bet on him. Tough loss for him, but that was his first knockout loss since the one 3 years ago in the UFC that sent him on this PFL path. 14th KO for Yagshimuradov. He is a dangerous man for sure. Welterweight champion goes to Musayev, who just really picked apart his opponent, Umalatov. Both these guys undefeated. Umalatov was trying for some takedowns. Didn't work. Tried to get big shots on the feet. Didn't shake his opponent. And then in the end, you saw the fight IQ of Musayev in that 3rd round finish that he had. He comes in there having, felt his opponent out for 2 rounds, found the timing, the spots, fakes the right hand, and once Umalatov puts up the hands for that, catches him with a big left hook that drops him. It's a beautiful thing sometimes when you can really see these replays, slow him down, and you see what the fighter's thinking, that, he knew what the reaction was going to be if he went with that right hand. So just faked it and then caught him in the opening, made his opponent pay, and gives Umalatov his first career loss. Then, after that, we also had the championship for the lightweight title. Primus, former champion, versus Rabadanov. This was all Rabadanov for the couple rounds that we saw this one. 3 rounds, he gets the finish there in the 3rd round. Only the second KO, TKO loss for Primus in his career. He dominated him. He dropped Primus a couple times in the 1st and 2nd round, kind of hurt himself by jumping into the guard of Primus and letting him try to hold him down and recover and get some submission attempts. Did not happen in the 3rd round. He gets a big left hook that stumbles Primus, lands a few more jabs. Primus falls on his face. Fight is over. And then you can't go without talking about the heavyweights. Golstov, Popov. Popov with the early takedown. Golstov works him for about a minute or 2, trying different submission attempts with the armbar, the triangle. Finally lands a triangle and wins by submission for the first time since 2019 and is the new heavyweight champ. When we come back, talk about all this being part of the PFL.
He also said that the Bears head coaching opening would be the most coveted job after the season.
They'll let that guy stay. I heard today that they were very worried about screwing up Caleb Williams, so that he likes this guy Brown so much that they may let him stay as the head coach What a disaster that'll turn into.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
We got the NBA Cup going on. Not that anybody really cares per se about the NBA Cup. Now, I got to be honest with you. I actually did try to look of like, okay, like what does it mean like for the NBA Cup? Like who's playing for what here? I lost interest and I gave up after about 30 seconds. And I was like, you know what? Whatever, dude. There's NBA games.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
OU is definitely better than Syracuse. Miami's lost by 4 and by 5. But that offense is so good.
Right.
You cannot run away from them.
But the perception is, if we're talking about those two teams,
Yep.
Oklahoma's just this blue blood program, and Syracuse and Georgia Tech are not.
Right.
So that's why we give you a reason to keep out Miami from the playoff.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
It's a new era in CFB to start off this year, put on full display.
My take on this game is simple. I know some people will be upset about it. Good riddance to the Pac-12.
Can you do it in terms of a week to week to week?
I don't see a pathway for this team to miss the college football playoffs.
We want to make sure you have those best bets in the entirety of our betting cards.
That was
Lincoln!
But he had that program was already going there.
Only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back on Combat Sports Report on Sports. Got a great PFL card out in Saudi Arabia this past weekend. And you know when we have action in the PFL, there's only a few people who you could talk to that are the experts in it. One of those guys we love having on the show is Ian Parker. Comes on with us again. Ian, thanks so much for joining us. A lot of great fights on this card. A lot of finishes in these these top six. Only the last one went the distance, which was you and I were talking before we started the interview. I talked to Coach last week, and he was saying that once you get this $1 million, sometimes these guys kind of play it cautious because you don't want to lose that money. But there are a lot of guys going for broke and girls going for broke in this one. 5 of the 6 fights ending before you get even to the fourth round.
Yeah, it was a really great card. I think the PFL needed this. It needed their finals to show up. I certainly didn't want to have to sit through 5 or 6 decisions, but even the decision was competitive. So it wasn't Brendan Loughnane is as tough as they come. The loss was clear. I mean, Raziv just absolutely, did his thing. But all these other guys, they came to fight. The openings were there for the finish. And I think we have some really solid fighters that came out of this season. Guys like Shamil Musayev. A lot of people didn't know who he was. He was the underdog against Logan Storley. He was the underdog in the first fight where he had the rematch where he won. And, this is somebody who... excellent takedown defense, good striking. He put out Umalatov. I don't think he's ever been finished. So this was a really successful card from a fighter standpoint, in my opinion. I think someone doubled Yakshimeridov. We talked about him being a live dog. This guy just flew under the radar as a dark horse the entire season, beating Wilkinson and flattening Impa. I don't know if you could have asked for better results for the PFL from a performance standpoint from the fighters.
Yeah, it was a great card. Lots of action. Let's go through, these top 6 ones for sure and see what else we could hit before we get out of here with you. Now, Israel, like you said, beaten Loughnane. It was I don't want to say domination. I mean, it was obviously in the scorecards. Loughnane had his moments, but it seemed like the big thing to me was, at times it almost seemed like he was trying to fight his opponent's fight. You saw him every time he tried that spinning back kick, it bit him in the butt because he got taken down, put on the mat. And Israel looked, really good on the feet. For as good as he was on the ground, keeping Loughnane down there, he looked even better on the feet quicker as the fight went on and just picked him apart. I was trying to find that in that I get the third round there where Loughnane really started bleeding. I was trying to find the shot that really opened him up, and it wasn't necessarily some huge shot that did it. It just seemed like the compounding of shot after shot, jab after jab, made him open up and bleed and look like a horror movie for half that fight.
When it comes to a guy like Raziv, what makes his striking that much better is the threat of the takedowns. And this is not the first time that Loughnane has fought a Dagestani wrestler when he fought Habulayev, and he went and trained with Habulayev. So when a guy like Raziv has that opportunity for takedowns, and your focus is defending it. I don't know if Loughnane was really fighting Raziv's fight. I think it was just a matter of trying to find his spots, and maybe he underestimated the striking, or this is someone, Raziv, who's just really that good. Timur is that good. And I think if he went to any organization, he would be very competitive in a top 15, a top 10 spot. He's very well rounded. His pace was tough to deal with, a lot of pressure. And we saw throughout the season his striking. He kept working and wanted to show everyone he wasn't just a wrestler. And for Loughnane, I think Brendan will look back on this fight and will say, you know what? We all know my kryptonite is against these Dagestani pressure wrestlers, but he didn't do bad with the wrestling. It was only a few times he got taken down, kept there. He eventually got back up. But to your point, the volume of punches, what cut him open. I don't know if the blood made a whole lot of difference. It just made for a cool-looking war paint type of thing. But, I give a lot of credit to Brendan Loughnane. He's been in a lot of wars, never says no to a fight. And we will see him back in again. I don't know if he'll be in a season format ever again. I don't think he really needs to do that. But, this was a fight where I think Loughnane learned a lot about himself. He still has it, can still compete at the top. Just a tough fight.
Speaking of competing at the top and underestimating your opponent, maybe Taila Santos, has been to the top. She's fought for titles. She's fought for it again in this one, but definitely seemed to underestimate her opponent, Decheva. You saw Dakota talk about that. She immediately put the lipstick on after the fight, talking about, she talking about, I'm just a Barbie. Well, you just got beat by a Barbie. Second round finish for her with the body shot, just brutal. And, she seemed to pick her apart. And every time it seemed like she was covering up, she got those front kicks to the face, and every time she blocked the face, all of a sudden she took a knee to the body. And then eventually, those uppercuts as we see there, just, doing the damage that finished her off there. Those two brutal uppercuts that Santos just could not continue. And Decheva just proves once again now she was a PFL Europe champ, now a PFL champ overall, that she is still on the rise, and it doesn't matter who you put in front of her. She is a bad woman.
Yeah, I don't really understand the whole Barbie thing. If you watch any of her fights, she's a very talented striker. She's a great MMA fighter. She's got a killer instinct. So because she's got the looks, that to me was the only thing that Taila really had to build a fight. I didn't really understand Taila Santos's game plan. You would have thought it would have been try to throw like an overhand right, lead into a double leg. Instead, she was trying to clinch and take her down that way, which just because Dakota doesn't really have jiu-jitsu as far as we know, we've seen Dakota has learned that if she gets taken down and get back up, use the cage properly. She was using the hips really well, but Taila wasn't even doing any type of disguising her wrestling. She kept going into the clinch to try to body lock her and take her down. I really didn't understand that, being that Dakota is so good in the clinch, and it's not like Taila is this sambo or judo fighter. She's got good jiu-jitsu and good striking herself. But there's very few women in the world that if you're going to be on the feet, you're going to beat Dakota Decheva. I think what Dakota Decheva showed us was exactly what she's been showing us, that it doesn't matter who you put in front of her. She's going to keep getting better. That's the scary part, man, is that I don't even think she is anywhere close to her potential. And that's what makes her so special. I think what's going to be very interesting now is how the PFL utilizes her, right? Because after the fight, everyone's like, oh, I want to see her in the UFC. It's like, guys, she's under contract. So let's see what the PFL does now with Dakota. I wouldn't mind if she goes back into the season, if they had enough people or they went out and recruited and got some good free agents. If not, I'm very curious to see who they put her against next, because right now it looks like she's going to run through everybody that they have.
And speaking of running through people, Yagshimuradov, less than a minute to get through Impa, champion last year. Not that anything wrong with him, but he got caught with a big right, and that was the end. We just saw the power of Yagshimuradov.
I honestly, this was a bizarre one for me, because Impa is not someone who rushes in, who kind of goes in with reckless abandon. When you do that and you try to fight in a phone booth with an absolute animal like Yagshimuradov, more than likely you're going to be the one to fall and not him. Douglas showed us he had a chin against Rob Wilkinson, and it's just absolutely crazy. It's just absolutely crazy to me that that fight went the way it did. I feel for Impa, but Yagshimuradov is a real beast.
He is, and we'll see what is next for him. And when we come back, we'll see what is next for these other three fights. And we talked to Ian Parker about the great PFL card we just watched in Saudi Arabia.
She was recruited to Oregon partially by, guess who? Mark Campbell and Xavi Lopez. They know what they're doing. And I'm going to say this right now, folks. I'm going to say this right now. Mark Campbell's one of the 5 to 10 best coaches in women's college basketball right now.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
We got the NBA Cup going on. Not that anybody really cares per se about the NBA Cup. Now, I got to be honest with you. I actually did try to look of like, okay, like what does it mean like for the NBA Cup? Like who's playing for what here? I lost interest and I gave up after about 30 seconds. And I was like, you know what? Whatever, dude. There's NBA games.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
He also said that the Bears head coaching opening would be the most coveted job after the season.
They'll let that guy stay. I heard today that they were very worried about screwing up Caleb Williams, so that he likes this guy Brown so much that they may let him stay as the head coach. What a disaster that'll turn into.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back in the Combat Sports Report. We continue to talk about this great championship card we just saw from the PFL on Black Friday. Continue to talk to our man Ian Parker and get his thoughts on what we saw with these great champions. $1 million to 6 different fighters who also win, of course, the season title. Ian, next up, you mentioned it before, you touched on it in the first segment, Musayev's win over Umalatov. Umalatov was undefeated. Both these guys came in without a loss on their record, and Musayev looked great. Umalatov tried some different things, tried the takedowns, it couldn't really stick, tried to find his spots, but in the end, the power of Musayev is what finished it off at that beautiful setup. It's one thing to knock a guy out, but when you know what you want to do against him, when you've kind of read him enough that he fakes the right and then blasts him with the left and puts him to the mat, that was just a thing of beauty with fight IQ.
It really was. Someone in Musayev, he's a really good counter striker, great takedown defense. And it's funny, I had a conversation with Big John McCarthy prior to this, and when him and I were talking about this fight, he goes, a lot of people are going to assume that Umalatov is a better wrestler, and he's not. Really, Musayev is the better wrestler. And what we've seen out of Umalatov the last few seasons of the PFL with his success is he either lands that big shot earlier or he's able to out-wrestle everybody. If he can't do that, what happens? What is plan C? The answer, he doesn't have a plan C. That was why I mentioned when we spoke that I thought Musayev would get it done here. Musayev is a very underrated fighter. People may just not know who he is. They should know who he is now, because I think this is someone who's one of the, I would say, probably top 10 in the world in this weight class regardless. His striking just looks so crisp. His takedown defense, such high fight IQ, patient. He even smiled a little bit when he won $1 million and the belt. So it was nice to see a little bit of personality there. I'd love to see him next season, or even fight maybe the Bellator champ, whoever that may be at the time. I'd like to see some personality out of this guy, though. They call him the silent assassin, and I get it, but, crack a smile, make a joke, say something here, Shamil, because this guy has potential to be a star with his fight style. Not everyone has to have that Conor McGregor mouthpiece. If you go out there and you're knocking people out, especially high level, you will get there, and I think that's someone the PFL really has in Musayev.
He certainly showed that. What a great talent he is, and we'll see what is next for him. But just ferocity in that fight IQ is something you love to see. Not just about like, hey, I can punch you and you can go down, but like, I can know what you're going to do from what I've done. That feel-out process you learn. People don't realize, the actual thoughts that go on behind some of those strikes, but he showed it there. You talked earlier about Rabadanov and how much of a badass he was against Primus. He gets the victory, a third-round finish for him as well. He showed the power a number of times, knocking Primus to the mat there in those 3 rounds before he gets the finish. But, a former champion Primus, a tough guy, and to be able to do what Rabadanov did to him just shows how tough he is.
Yeah, this was just a really bad stylistic match for Brent Primus, but you can't control it when you're in the season format. You fight who you got to fight in the finals. Primus is always in the season and in his successful career has been able to wrestle guys, use his jiu-jitsu, and land a power punch to do it. He wasn't the better wrestler here. We talk about this. If this fight was a stand-up, if he doesn't land that big shot, which he has power, he was going to lose. And I will say this, too, about Rabadinov. He's going to go back and he's going to watch this fight. He's going to be kicking himself in those first couple of rounds because when he dropped Primus, he went to the ground with him. And I did not understand that. Finally, he listened to his team when he dropped him, let him back up, and then it was the beginning and the end, and eventually he sent him to the shadow realm. So, Gazi Rabadinov is a very good fighter. Very few mistakes other than, you don't need to follow Brent Primus to the ground, give him time to recover, or even let him get his jiu-jitsu game going. That fight on the feet was all him. I love Brent Primus. I thought he had a fantastic season. Obviously, it was a very tough loss. I think he'll be back. Really great fight. And Rabadinov, back-to-back knockouts to close out the season for him was an excellent showing.
Yeah, I agree with you the way he was fighting that early, where he's getting that guard. That first round, I thought, obviously they probably wouldn't because refs never do for whatever reason, but I thought you could have even possibly given Primus that first round because of the aggression from the back with the sub-taps, but they never seemed to give the credit for that it deserves because he kept going from sub-tap to sub-attempt and, was kind of the more aggressive fighter for most of that time on the mat. But either way, the finish in the third is what ends it. And last off, the big heavyweights, Golstov versus Popov. Big guys, big hands. You expect maybe to get a grueling battle of guys trying to see who finished each other. Getting an early takedown that leads to a submission for the first time in 17 fights for Golstov.
I'm so happy for Golstov. As long as I've been in the PFL, we always kept saying, is this his year? Is this his year? He really is one of the more well-rounded heavyweights. He's got a great sambo background, good wrestling, good subs on the feet. You saw how lean he looked. Very athletic, big guy. But for some reason, whenever he got to the finish line, he just fell short. And in this one, I did not love how easily he got taken down from Popov. But that submission, that triangle, very well done. If he fights Francis Ngannou next, he's got to get his wrestling going because we know the type of power Francis has. But I'm very happy that Golstov finally got to the finish line. Well-deserved. Great guy, great fighter. Happy for him.
What a great finish to 2024 for the PFL. And we already know 2025, going to get another Dagestani wrestler, Nurmagomedov versus Paul Hughes is announced. We'll have to have you back on the coming weeks to talk about that, Ian. Can't wait to see more action from the PFL. Thanks so much for joining us here on the Combat Sports Report.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circus Sports Million, Circus Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With two former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
We got the NBA Cup going on. Not that anybody really cares per se about the NBA Cup. Now, I got to be honest with you. I actually did try to look of what does it mean for the NBA Cup? Like who's playing for what here? And I lost interest and I gave up after about 30 seconds. And I was like, you know what? Whatever, dude. There's NBA games.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back into the Combat Sports Report here on SportsGrid. Now, of course, this time of year, people are thinking about the holidays. They focus on that. Or some people are thinking about things, post or pre-election. But you know what? There is only one thing you should think about, one time zone that you could really lock into right now these days, and that is the Rivera era that we've been living in since 2024. As you remember, Nathan Rivera joins us now. After his first fight, handed that envelope to the head of the BKFC, Dave Feldman. And once he won, immediately Feldman opened and said, "Welcome to the Rivera era." And he continues that now, going for his third fight for the BKFC this upcoming weekend in his home area of Georgia. Nathan, thanks so much for joining us. How are you doing as you have final preparations, getting ready to throw down for the third time with the BKFC?
Man, I'm doing great. I actually just jumped out of a hyperbaric chamber, getting pumped full of 100% oxygen, making sure the cardiovascular is on point, making sure all the injuries are healed up, and I'm just ready to put on a show.
Now, of course, you're fighting in Georgia. This is in the area that you live, you train, you have grown up in. How excited are you to get this fight here? I mean, it's always great, I'm sure, to get a fight. When you're in this, when you're as locked in as you are. We'll talk about, what you've been up to recently to get ready for that in a minute. But to have that home crowd behind you, to have all these people, do you love that? Or does that add extra pressure for you to have to make sure you put on an even better performance for them and to do the things like to sell the tickets and things like that? Do you like the pressure of being at home, or does it add a little more distraction for you?
Man, I love the pressure. More pressure, more diamonds. So I'm here. I'm on a high pedestal with all of my friends and family going to be watching me, and I think it's going to make me perform at such a higher level. I love going to people's backyards and beating up the hometown boy, but fighting home is very special to me.
And you'll get to do that. I saw the article they wrote about you getting ready for this fight that, of course, everyone around there is going to be talking to you like they usually are. Whenever you got to fight, people are going to say what they think or, how you should do this or do that. Or, when they're going to be there, it's even more so. But I heard you said that one of your coworkers was trying to change how you fight because, you've had some quick knockouts here so far on the BKFC. And he's trying to get you to stretch out a bit. This guy wants more bang for his buck. I mean, come on. You're going for your win. It doesn't matter how you do it, right?
Right. I mean, look, man, I got one thing in mind, and that's just winning. It's winning the fight and going to perform. I'm so prepared to go for 5 rounds and, in my training, mentally, physically, spiritually, I'm ready to go 5 hard rounds. And, this guy might be someone that can take me there. And if he can, then I look forward to it because I have so much to show. I think together my 2 fights have been maybe like 2 or 3 minutes. So the world hasn't even seen half of what I have to offer.
No, they've been 2:43, 1 minute and 21 seconds, 1 minute and 22 seconds. So
there
we haven't even gotten to the minute and a half mark here. I don't know if you're even really breaking a sweat so far in the BKFC. How do you look at that? Obviously, you're going to look at it with success, that you're getting the wins, you're doing what you need to do. But, when you talk about what you can really show, what you haven't shown yet to the BKFC fans, when getting into a 3, 4, 5 round battle, having to, fight back after some adversity, what do you, think that people are going to get from you that they haven't seen yet in these first 2 fights?
Man, I think it's going to be either way it goes. I think it's going to be awesome. I mean, the adversity that I face in the gym every single day, it's like none other. I mean, I'm going through these grueling sparring sessions where I have to face this adversity. So I'm friends with the adversity and the struggle. So hopefully, the fans will be able to see a great long fight where I overcome a lot of adversity and we can both get out of there with very, very, giving the fans what they deserve. And that's a banger fight.
And you talked about, one of your recent posts about your motivation, about what drives you. And, you said that originally, before it was out of an unhealthy fear. You didn't want to be, I guess, disappointing to people, disappointing to what you thought you should be, to what God thought you should be, that, it was kind of more of a fear of being a failure than anything else. But now you've changed things, you focused on different ways to look at it. How is that, you think that's helped you grow as a fighter, as a person? And, how do you think that helps you drive you in your career in a more healthy way?
Yeah, I mean, there's 2 ways I think to really get good success, and some things are going to help you out long term, and some things are going to they might help you short term. This is something where I've changed my whole mindset around the sport itself, and I walk in a different light now, and I believe that people will see that come December 6th at the Gas South Arena. it's a weight lifted off my shoulders. A lot of people say like you need to have that fear of this and that, and I just don't think that's the right way to operate. So going through my career this way, I think it's going to be a lot more beneficial to myself, to my team, and everybody around me.
And how have you been, in your prep? You talk about the grueling battles you have done in camp already to get ready for this, the sparring sessions. How is camp going? How are you feeling a couple days out? How is your weight as you get ready for this? Is everything on point? It's just a matter of stepping on the scales and getting into the ring?
Yeah, I mean, this fight, my nutritionist, she's like, dude, you need to eat some more, because I'm dropping weight in a good way. I feel strong. I feel healthy. I'm getting great sleep. And I feel like I'm just ready. It feels like 10 months, because it was a long 10 months of preparation. And I can't wait to go show everything we've been working on. I mean, the ups and downs in the last 10 months from not having a fight has forced me to really grow. And I believe that people will see that the evolution in my game come this Friday.
I heard you talking to our guy Brian Socha last week about the big change you made in your life to get ready for this too. That you're a welder by trade. That's something you kind of stepped back from and gotten more into the office job to get you some more time. Where you can physically heal and not be so much of the hard toll that takes on your body doing that. How has that helped you in your training? You talked about the hyperbaric chamber that you just got out of before you talked to us. How have things like that helped you feel your peak performance and ready to do the best that you have seen so far in the BKFC?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I wake up and I don't feel banged up. I don't feel broken. So, I mean, the everyday training, the fight is like the fun part, What sometimes can get real taxing on the body is going to practice every single day when you're tired, when you're broken, when you're hungry. So that has just fueled me, and I feel like a new person, And I think that when I fight this Friday and I get the victory, I think it's going to show, because I mean, I've never been in this good of shape mentally and physically.
And how excited are you to be part of this card? That's the first in Atlanta for the BKFC. I know, obviously, what fighters have fought at home before. It's not like this is anything new for you. Atlanta's had different combat sports throughout the years, but this is the first time that the bare knuckle audience and the fandom really gets to see what is going on in Atlanta with the fighters from there. How important is for you to be part of this?
Oh, it's an honor, man. I mean, I had my first amateur fight here in Georgia. And the only time I really fought out of the state, I fought a couple times out of the state in South Carolina and stuff like that for amateur boxing fights. But the only time I fought out of the state was with BKFC. So to show them the kind of crowd that I'll bring and the kind of pop will be in the stands when I walk out, it means everything to me. I think that David Feldman will realize that as from a business standpoint, that I'm a great investment. And I think he's going to get a really good taste of what the Rivera era really is about.
An investment that he's going to want to put on there a bunch of cards next year. I saw you saying you want to fight like 4 or 5 times next year. You're all about getting in the action here. You're sick of, you said 10 months of training here. You're sick of being on the sidelines. You're fighting, of course, Street here, a guy who's coming off a recent loss just a couple months ago. What have you seen in his couple fights, and what do you think, makes him a good opponent for you to take advantage of?
Yeah, I mean, he's a scrapper, which I think it's gonna look so good when I defeat somebody like this, because he's tough. He has great cardio. I mean, he's probably had quadruple the amount of professional fights as I have. And so for me to go in here with a seasoned vet like that and do him how I do him is going to be awesome.
Nathan, the Reaper Rivera, looking to get in there, take another soul, looking to get into those rankings in that division and make some noise. Once again, thank you so much for joining us. We're really looking forward to seeing this first card in Atlanta and seeing what you can do down there in your third fight with the BKFC.
Awesome. Thank you for having me, man. If you guys are in the Atlanta area, more so the Duluth area, pop out because it is going to be a party.
We're looking forward to seeing that this Friday. Of course, that fight is December 6th, BKFC 69. Make sure you check it out on the BKFC app, on the website, everywhere you can watch it. Make sure you are taking part in it, as the Reaper Rivera going to be in there flying his trade once again for the BKFC.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
OU is definitely better than Syracuse. Miami's lost by 4 and by 5. But that offense is so good.
Right.
You cannot run away from them.
But the perception is, if we're talking about those two teams, Oklahoma's just this blue blood program, and Syracuse and Georgia Tech are not.
Right.
So that's why we give you a reason then to keep out Miami from the playoff.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching!
Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The early line. Only on SportsGrid.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than game time decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Welcome back into Combat Sports Report here on SportsGrid. We are getting ready for a bunch of fights this weekend, multiple cards and multiple different organizations, and one that we've been watching for a couple weeks now is, of course, Lights Out Extreme Fighting 21, December 7th, out there in California. Once again, Long Beach. You could get in there 4 o'clock, the local time. The doors open 5 o'clock west. They start, so 8 o'clock east. Lots of great action throughout. We've had numerous fighters on throughout the coming weeks prepping for their fights, letting us know what they're about and how excited they are to be on this card. Now we bring on the man who's putting it on himself, of course, Shawne Merriman, the head of Lights Out Extreme Fighting, the founder. We bring him in now. Shawne, thanks so much for joining us. This is, as per usual, great card. People look excited for it. The fighters are hyped for it, as we've been talking to them. Where, if people aren't in the Long Beach area, where's the best way to watch it? Is it on the Lights Out app? Is it on the website? What's the best way to check out all the action this weekend?
Yeah. This Saturday we'll be live in Long Beach. If you can't come there, we'll be live on Lights Out Sports TV, which you guys can download on every smart TV device, iOS, Android, completely free. But man, we got a big one. We got a burn on our hands this weekend. And as you said, I'm sure you guys have kind of felt the temperature from the fighters and talking to them and just how they feel about this weekend. And I've been saying it now for the past, 3 or 4 weeks. This guy's going back and forth, man. And this one's going to be big.
It certainly is. And we talking to, like you said, the fighters. We have multiple championships on the line here. Let's start with the heavyweight championship. A guy who we've been talking to is going to be pulling double duty, of course. Blake Troop going to be in there. First going to be calling fights like he has for you for a while. Then going to be taking off the headset, putting on the gloves, and mixing it up, fighting for a title in his swan song here, his final fight. What should we expect with him versus Fidial here in this title fight at the heavyweight?
Yeah, man, it's cool. You know what's funny about Blake is he wanted to go and commentate the first part of the fight and get back in the booth when he's done. So he wanted to go back and forth during the fight day. But that's how he's wired. Blake is wired completely different, man. He's such a technician. If you hear him as a broadcaster, as a commentator, how he can articulate what's going on. I mean, we're fortunate to have him there, just his excitement, his energy. But he's a technician, man. I think that Blake, I don't know if this is going to be his last one or not. It probably will be. We're just happy as with Lights Out Extreme Fight, man. But he's going to go out with a bang.
Showing that dedication, too. He told us he moved everything back. He's been in Florida doing the wrestling thing for a while, doing that as his future career as well. But now that he came back to California to train, back to his old gym. So, obviously, whether it's his last fight or not, he's putting in that work. He's not taking it lightly, not, just showing up, trying to get paid. He's making sure that he's ready to try to get this title.
Yeah, no doubt about that. He was training at a great place. My guys over there at Black House. I've trained over there for some years and jumped on the open mat on Friday, sparred a little bit myself, and I know they got some great fighters coming out of that gym. So he had great coaches and a great team around him. And look, man, I mean, I know he said this might be his last fight, but the way he's looked, he probably could fight a couple more fights if he really wanted to do that. But either way, man, we're happy to have him. He's going to put on a show. He's the main event of the night. Everybody is coming out to see him. He's sold a ton of tickets and making a lot of noise. So there's some other big fighters too that we want to look at. And Arnold Jimenez, he's 10-3 right now. He's fighting Keenan Lewis. That fight is going to be a banger as well. I think Keenan's been on a 5-win streak, and Jimenez, I don't know, he's like 10-3 right now. This dude is just. Well, one of these guys might have a shot there if they continue on this path at getting to the UFC and maybe going to Dana's Contender Series or something like that. But, we got some up-and-coming superstars. Another one I want to talk about is Jake Babion, who's making this Lights Out Extreme fighting appearance, with us for the first time. When I tell you a personality, like this dude, he like walks the walk, talks the talk, and he backs it up, man. He's a showman. So, he's bringing a lot of people out. And he's one of the ones we want to build, man. We want to keep around for a while because he brings a lot of excitement. Also the caveman, man, Shawne, he's fighting again back with us. I believe this is his second fight. He fights at 190, right? And a lot of these guys I'll see, not a lot of them, but some of them I'll see for the first time in person at the weigh-ins. And it's funny because some of these guys have watched me play football, and maybe their favorite player they watched growing up. And so they might look at me and say, oh, man, you're bigger in person than I thought. And I get there and I see Shawne, the caveman, who's fighting at 190. And I'm like, dude, you look nothing like at 190. He's looked like he's every bit of 230 and 240 pounds. He's solid. He's looking to put on another show, man. But we're stacked up. We got seven amateur, 7 pro. The doors open at 4 o'clock. And by 5 o'clock, man, if you look at that fight, when we first come on, watch how packed it is. Our first amateur fight, that place is like 60% full. And it's hard to do that in this business, man, but that's what kind of momentum we got right now, and everybody come out to watch, and we appreciate it.
Yeah, a great battle between the Menezes and Lewis, one we're looking forward to. Should be an awesome one there. We talked to Jake a couple weeks ago about his debut coming over from Hawaii, now being out there in California. How do you find a guy like that, who is making a debut for you? Other organizations might watch your organization, might watch other ones to see these guys fight. How do you find the talent that you bring into the Lights Out Extreme Fighting? Is it just word of mouth around the gyms in the area? Is it about, you going to other events and seeing where people what are doing? How do you find some of this great talent that you've brought in, who are still early in their career, might not have a ton of tape on them yet?
Yeah, fortunately, I got a great team with me, matchmakers and operation. I mean, I got a hell of a team. But the second part of that is, Jake, comes out of, he's working with the guys over at Body Shop, with AJ and those guys over at it's over at Bellator, AJ McKee and both his dad and his son, who I've trained with for several years and been over there. So I've been around this business, man, for almost 20 years. So a lot of these guys will tell you that I popped into a lot of gyms, sparred or just worked on the side or kind of worked out and just watching. I've always loved this sport, man. I think it's the greatest, and we want to continue to put on the next up and coming superstars. We know we got them. And to get an opportunity to get these guys on a mainstream, because we're the most distributed regional promotion in the world. We get eyeballs, and we keep growing because of these guys who are coming over to fight. We're getting calls from not only everybody in the country, but people in the world just trying to come in and fight for Lights Out Extreme Fighting, man. So we want to keep throwing these big events.
And you're doing a great job with that. Lights Out Extreme Fighting 21. I'm sure it's come a long way from when you started. I don't know if you imagine what it's grown to so far and what it can become. I'm sure you have great plans for the future, 2025. We look forward to seeing what's next from Lights Out, Extreme Fighting, the fighting organization, from the app. Of course, we're great partners there on there. You can watch SportsGrid as well. Thank you so much, Shawne, for everything you've done for the MMA community out there in California. Continue doing. We look forward to seeing this fight card and then what you have up your sleeve in 2025.
Appreciate it, guys. See y'all Saturday.
We got the NBA Cup going on. Not that anybody really cares per se about the NBA Cup. Now, I got to be honest with you. I actually did try to look of like, okay, like what does it mean like for the NBA Cup? Like who's playing for what here? I lost interest and I gave up after about 30 seconds. And I was like, you know what? Whatever, dude. There's NBA games.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circa Sports Million, Circa Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With two former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
He also said that the Bears head coaching opening would be the most coveted job after the season.
They'll let that guy stay. I heard today that they were very worried about screwing up Caleb Williams, so that he likes this guy Brown so much that they may let him stay as the head coach. What a disaster that'll turn into.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
OU is definitely better than Syracuse. Miami's lost by 4 and by 5. But that offense is so good.
Right.
You cannot run away from them.
But the perception is, if we're talking about those two teams, Oklahoma's just this blue blood program, and Syracuse and Georgia Tech are not.
Right.
So that's why we give you a reason to keep out Miami from the playoff.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back into the Combat Sports Report. Thanks so much for watching this past week's episode. Thanks so much to our guests this past week. We just had a great conversation with Ian Parker about everything that happened out in Saudi Arabia for the PFL 2024 World Championships. A lot of great performances out there. It was an awesome fight card to get to watch on Black Friday. Great to catch up with Nathan the Reaper Rivera, talk about his fight coming up this weekend in Atlanta, Georgia. And thanks so much to Shawne Merriman for joining us, giving us more insight into Lights Out Extreme Fighting 2021 to 21, about the different fighters we'll see, about the belts that are on the line, about the different storylines, and a little bit of the insight on how he gets some of these great fighters that we see rise up the ranks in Lights Out and maybe even go on to bigger things and more and other promotions as they continue their great career. So great to catch up with Shawne Merriman as always. But we have this card coming up this weekend with the BKFC. Let's talk about it quick before we get out of here. First time in Atlanta, Georgia for the BKFC. Going to be great to see what that crowd and those fans can bring. Great fight area in Georgia. Plenty of great fighters have come out of there before. Great to see it finally get stationed there for the BKFC. Going to be headlined by a banger of a fight. We get to see the return of Keith, the rock star Richardson, of course, coming into the BKFC again for the first time since his loss of the title to Blas. We'll have to see how he looks. You know, that was a bad loss for him against Blas. You could see that the beating he was taking, he was all out of sorts, even attacking the ref at the end, not realizing it was the ref. So hopefully, you know, he has taken the proper time to recover and get back to the badass that we've seen before. Now he fights against Michael Larimore. Larimore going to be at an experience disadvantage here. Only 2-0 in the BKFC, coming off of his last win, Justin Watson, last November. So he's had a lot of time off. Now going against a guy in Richardson who has a 4-1 record in the BKFC. But, you know, he has shown some great things in his 2 wins. The young phenom Larimore at 26, long reach in this division. We'll see what he can do against Rockstar Richardson. Going to be an awesome fight to see where both these fighters stand right now at this point in the BKFC. Then the co-main event, Joe Elmore versus Derek Finley. Now Elmore, of course, coming off a 3-fight losing streak right now, but against the last 2, Connor Tierney, Dustin Pegg, those are the top of the top. We get to see him in 2024 for the first time. Hasn't fought since last September. You get about 1 fight a year with Joe Elmore, it seems, since in the last 3 or 4 years. So hopefully this one is just as good as the other ones, even though those last few were losses. Always great performances for Joe Elmore. He's always going to go in there and throw down. He is not going to be a point fighter ever. And he's going against Derek Finley, coming off a nice win, his first win, the BKFC, against Sergio Lopez. Of course, lost to Caleb Harris and Jake Lindsay before that. Some of the top guys in this division. Then beat Sergio Lopez. Now coming in there against Joe Elmore. Another tough test for him to see if he can get to 500 in the BKFC and maybe get back to a winning streak here and try to make a name for himself in the promotion. Then you also have fights like light heavyweight, where Joseph the Dark Knight Creer is going to be going against David Simpson. Simpson, of course, getting back on the winning ways in his last fight back in June against Marcus Suarez after suffering back-to-back losses to Jay Jackson and Dave Mundell. Now he's going to go against Joseph Creer, who's looking to get back in the winning column himself. After his back-to-back wins against Glass and Mitchell, he lost to Atchison back in August on that Hart-Starling card out there in Sturgis. So now he's trying to get back in there, get a win, get back into the mix in this division, in the light heavyweight division. A guy who's had some great power so far in the BKFC. Can he do it against a guy like David Simpson? We will see. Also on this card, we just talked to Nathan, the Reaper Rivera. He's going against Justin the Nightmare Street. Of course, Street coming off the loss to Ibarola in his second fight for the BKFC just a couple months ago. September he fought. So quick turnaround for him here. After just a couple months, he's getting right back in there. That was a pretty good volume of shots he took in his shot against Ibarola. Now seeing if he can upset another up-and-comer in Nathan the Reaper Rivera. Rivera 2-0 in the BKFC, coming off back-to-back wins over James Hyder and Dustin Garrett, both 121, 122. Does this make 123? We haven't even gotten to 1 minute and 30 so far in a Nathan Rivera fight. Let's see what he can do now that he's even more focused and driven. A guy who has given up his day job of being out there in the hard work of welding, got more into the office world in order to, as you heard him say, be easier on his body, give more focus to fighting. We'll see what he looks like, even more focused and dangerous than he already has been in the BKFC. You also have the return of Crystal Wanwick coming back into the mix here with the BKFC. Last we saw her was back in May when she lost to Dr. Shara Shell after her win over Christina Christ. So this is a big one for her to see where she stands in the BKFC. The South African coming back over to fight in the squared circle. It is going to be a great card down there in Atlanta, Georgia. Looking at how things are stacked up here, I have questions, obviously, about how we're going to Rockstar Richardson is going to recover off of that Blas loss, but I'm going to hope he's right back to what we saw before that. Many people have not gotten in there against Blas and lasted very long, so I think he's going to show Larimore that he's still one of the top guys in this bantamweight division. Thanks so much to everyone who tuned in this week's episode. Hopefully you enjoy the great fights we'll see this weekend, and we'll be back to recap them for you next week here on SportsGrid on the Combat Sports Report.
She was recruited to Oregon partially by, guess who? Mark Campbell and Xavi Lopez. They know what they're doing. And I'm going to say this right now, folks. I'm going to say this right now. Mark Campbell's one of the 5 to 10 best coaches in women's college basketball right now.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching!
Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this once? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
We got the NBA Cup going on. Not that anybody really cares per se about the NBA Cup. Now, I got to be honest with you. I actually did try to look of what does it mean for the NBA Cup? Who's playing for what here? And I lost interest and I gave up after about 30 seconds. And I was like, you know what? Whatever, dude. There's NBA games.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
He also said that the Bears head coaching opening would be the most coveted job after the season.
They'll let that guy stay. I heard today that they were very worried about screwing up Caleb Williams, so that he likes this guy Brown so much that they may let him stay as the head coach. What a disaster that'll turn into.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.